The sound of my laptop shattering under my father's fist ripped through the silence of my tiny New York apartment just hours before my thesis was due. "No son of mine will submit that garbage about being gay," he bellowed, his face twisted in rage, and in that moment, I knew my world was about to change forever in ways he could never predict. My name is Mark Thompson, 24 years old, and I had spent the last 2 years pouring my soul into a sociology thesis on family dynamics and identity formation in modern America. The research was personal, raw, and built around interviews with queer individuals navigating conservative upbringings. I never meant for my father, Robert Thompson, to see the draft notes, the photos of Jeremy and me at Pride last summer, or the private journal entries I had saved on the desktop. He had flown in from Pennsylvania unannounced the night before to surprise me with what he called a father's pep talk before the big submission. Instead, he sat at my desk while I stepped out for coffee and opened the screen that changed everything. When I walked back in the door, the first thing I saw was the laptop in pieces, the screen cracked like a spider web, the keyboard keys scattered across the hardwood floor. My father stood over the wreckage, breathing heavy, his fists still clenched. "What the hell is this, Mark?" he demanded, waving a printed page from my research folder, the one where I had written openly about falling in love with Jeremy, and how it forced me to question everything our family stood for. I froze, coffee cups slipping from my hand, splashing across the floor. "Dad," I started, but the words died. He had always been the strong, silent type, a construction foreman who believed in hard work, church on Sundays, and the way things used to be. Coming out to him had been a conversation I planned for after graduation when I had a job and independence. Now it was exploding in real time with my entire academic future on the line. Jeremy, my boyfriend of 18 months, was the first person I called once my father stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Jeremy's voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "Mark, breathe. Is the data backed up?" I sank to the floor, staring at the ruined machine. Some of it was in the cloud, but the final chapter revisions, the annotated bibliography, I had spent weeks perfecting, those were local only. The submission portal closed at 9 a.m. sharp tomorrow. I had 12 hours. Jeremy said he was leaving his teaching job early and would be there in 20 minutes with his own laptop and every spare drive he owned. While I waited, I replayed every warning my mother had given me over the years. "Your father loves you, Mark, but he comes from a different time. Don't push him too hard." Love felt like a luxury I cannot afford right now. The apartment smelled of spilled coffee and shattered plastic. My hands shook as I tried to gather the pieces of the machine, as if I could somehow glue my life back together. When Jeremy arrived, he did not waste time on pity. He plugged in his laptop, pulled up the cloud backup, and started downloading everything, while I paced the small living room explaining in broken sentences how my father had read the dedication page, the one addressed to the man who taught me that love has no rules. Jeremy listened, his dark eyes steady. "We will fix this. You are not alone." His hand on my shoulder grounded me, but inside I felt the first cracks of doubt. Was my truth worth destroying the relationship with a man who raised me? By midnight, we had recovered 70% of the files, but the conclusion chapter was corrupted beyond repair. I would have to rewrite it from memory under the harshest deadline of my life. Jeremy made coffee and sat beside me as I typed. The words that had once felt liberating now felt like a battlefield. Every sentence reminded me of the price I was paying for honesty. My father's voice echoed in my head. "No son of mine." The night stretched long and heavy, but Jeremy's quiet presence kept me moving forward, one keystroke at a time. I did not know then that this was only the beginning of choices that would test every bond one had ever known. By 3 a.m. the new conclusion was taking shape, but my mind kept drifting to the first time I met Jeremy at a campus support group for first-generation grad students. He had been the guest speaker, a high school history teacher who grew up in a similar conservative household and had chosen to live openly anyway. His story of losing his own father to a heart attack before they could reconcile hit me hard. After the meeting, we grabbed coffee and talked until the shop closed. That night, I realized love could be both terrifying and the safest place in the world. Now, as I typed furiously on Jeremy's laptop, the memory fueled me, but also sharpened the fear. What if my father was right and I was throwing away my future for something society still punished? Jeremy stayed awake with me, refilling my mug and reading sections aloud to catch typos. His voice, steady and warm, reminded me why I had chosen this path. The thesis was not just academic. It was my declaration that families could evolve, that love could win over fear. At 6 a.m., We hit send on the revised document with 4 minutes to spare. The confirmation email glowed on the screen like a small victory flag. I collapsed against Jeremy, exhausted but relieved. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "You did it, Mark." But the relief lasted only until my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice trembling. "Your father is on his way back to the apartment. He wants to talk." I looked at Jeremy, who nodded supportively, but I saw the worry in his eyes. When my father returned, he was calmer, but no less determined. He sat on the edge of the couch, avoiding eye contact. "I did what I had to do, son. That lifestyle destroys families. I have seen it." His words cut deep because I knew he believed them. He told me about his own brother, who came out in the 80s and lost everything to addiction and isolation. I tried to explain that times had changed, that my research showed acceptance saved lives, but he shook his head. "You are confused, Mark. Break it off with that guy, and we can fix this." I felt the moral weight pressing down. Choosing Jeremy meant losing my father. Choosing silence meant losing myself. Jeremy waited in the bedroom, giving us space, but I could feel his presence like an anchor. By noon, the conversation had escalated into shouts. My father offered to pay for the rest of my loans if I promised to keep my personal life private. The bribe felt like a cage. I refused and watched his face harden. "Then you are on your own." He left again, and the silence that followed was heavier than the shouting. Jeremy emerged and pulled me into his arms. We stood there in the sunlit room, the city humming outside the window. I whispered, "I do not know if I can survive this without them." He answered, "You will not have to." But inside, I wondered if love was enough when family rejection felt like a death sentence. The rest of the day blurred into exhaustion. We celebrated the submission with takeout on the floor, but every bite tasted of uncertainty. My thesis was in, but my life was unraveling, and I knew the real battles were just beginning. That night, as Jeremy slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying my father's words and questioning every decision that led me here. The price of authenticity was becoming clearer with every passing hour. The next morning, the university portal showed my submission marked received, but the relief was short-lived. My mother called again, this time crying. "Your father told the whole family, Mark. Your uncle is saying terrible things." The news spread through our tight-knit Pennsylvania relatives like wildfire. Messages flooded my phone, some supportive, most condemning. One cousin texted, "You are breaking your mother's heart." The pressure felt suffocating. Jeremy suggested we take a walk in Central Park to clear my head. The autumn leaves were turning gold under a bright blue sky, but even the beauty could not lift the weight. As we walked hand in hand, I noticed a few stares from older couples and felt the familiar sting of societal judgment. Jeremy squeezed my hand tighter. "Let them look. We are not hiding anymore." That evening, my mother arrived at the apartment, unannounced, her eyes red from crying. She hugged me tight, then pulled back to look at Jeremy. "So you are the one." Her tone was not hostile, but uncertain. We sat together, and for the first time I told her everything, the years of hiding, the fear, the love that finally made me brave. She listened, but when I finished, she said, "Your father is hurting, Mark. He thinks he failed as a parent." The conversation turned into a plea for me to apologize, to smooth things over. I felt torn between the woman who raised me and the truth I could no longer deny. Jeremy stayed quiet, offering support with his presence, but I could see the strain on his face. Later, when she left, he admitted, "I am scared for you, Mark. They are asking you to erase us." The following days brought more confrontations. My father called, demanding I attend a family counseling session back home. I refused, citing the thesis defense in 2 weeks. He hung up, and the silence felt final. Then the financial blow landed. The monthly allowance he had been sending for rent stopped. I stared at my bank app, the balance dropping below what I needed for next month's bills. Jeremy offered to cover it, but I hesitated. Taking his money felt like another dependency. That night, we argued for the first time. He said, "You do not have to carry this alone." I snapped back, "I do not want to be the boyfriend who needs saving." The words hung heavy between us. We made up, but the crack was there. The pressure from family was seeping into our relationship like poison. By the end of the week, I received an email from my advisor. Everything looked good for defense, but she mentioned a strange call from someone claiming to be family questioning my research ethics. My stomach dropped. My father had contacted the university. The betrayal burned. I confronted him over the phone, and he admitted it. I had to protect you from yourself, son. The call ended in tears on my end and silence on his. Jeremy, help me as I broke down. In that moment, I realized the difficulties were not just external. They were reshaping who I was becoming. I had to decide what kind of man I wanted to be, one who bowed to pressure or one who stood tall no matter the cost. The sun streamed through the windows as we sat together, but the warmth could not chase away the chill of impending loss. The betrayal cut deepest when I learned it was not just my father. My older brother, Ethan, had been the one to forward my private emails to Dad after snooping through my social media. Ethan and I had always been close, or so I thought. When I called him, the conversation turned ugly. You are embarrassing the family, Mark. Dad is right, this is not normal. The words from my own brother felt like a knife. I hung up and sat on the apartment floor staring at nothing. Jeremy found me there and listened without judgment. He shared his own story of a sister who still refused to meet his partner. The parallels made the pain sharper, but also made me feel less alone. We decided together that I would not let the betrayal derail the defense. I would rewrite the affected sections if needed and face the committee with my head high. The days leading to the defense were a blur of revisions and anxiety. I worked from Jeremy's place when the apartment felt too empty. One evening, a neighbor knocked complaining about noise from my place, but it was just me pacing and muttering thesis points. The social prejudice followed me even in the city. At the campus coffee shop, a group of undergrads whispered when they saw Jeremy and me holding hands. One muttered, "Disgusting." I wanted to confront them, but Jeremy pulled me away. Not worth it. But it was wearing on me. Each small slight chipped away at my confidence. The moral dilemma grew heavier. Was I selfish for pursuing my truth at the expense of family harmony? Or was staying silent the real betrayal of the people who needed stories like mine? With 2 days to go, I made a decision. I added a new section to the thesis, an addendum about the personal cost of coming out in conservative families. It was risky, but honest. Jeremy read it and nodded approval. This is who you are, Mark. During a late-night study session, he surprised me with a small gift, a new external drive engraved with the date of my submission. The gesture reminded me of the love that made all the struggle worthwhile. Yet the relationship strain was real. Jeremy wanted me to file a complaint against my father's interference at the university. I refused, fearing it would burn bridges forever. You are choosing them over us, he said quietly one night. The accusation hung between us until I pulled him close and whispered, never. But doubt lingered in both our eyes. The morning of the defense, I woke to a text from my mother. Your father is coming to New York. He wants to be there. My heart raced with hope and terror. Jeremy drove me to campus, his hand on mine the entire way. As I stood outside the conference room in my best suit, the weight of every choice pressed down. I had sacrificed sleep security and family peace. Now I would find out if it was enough. Walking into the room, I saw my advisor smiling and the committee ready. I took a deep breath and began. The presentation flowed, but inside I was fighting a war between the boy who wanted his father's approval and the man who refused to hide. When I finished, the questions came sharp but fair. I answered with a passion that had carried me this far. Hours later, the email arrived. Passed with distinction. The victory tasted bittersweet, knowing the people I loved most were still divided. Jeremy met me outside with flowers and a proud kiss under the bright afternoon sun. For a moment, the world felt right. But I knew the next confrontation would test everything we had built. The celebration was short. My father arrived in New York the next day, without warning, and demanded a meeting at a diner near campus. I went alone against Jeremy's advice. He sat across from me, looking older than his 58 years. I heard you passed. His voice was gruff, but there was something new in his eyes, pride mixed with pain. I nodded, waiting. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a check for the amount he had cut off plus extra. Take it. Get your life straight. The offer felt like a trap. I pushed it back. I do not want your money if it comes with conditions. His face reddened. You think that teacher boyfriend is going to support you when the world turns against you? The argument escalated quickly. Other diners stared as he raised his voice about sin and choices. I stood my ground. This is who I am, Dad. If you cannot accept it, then we have nothing left to say. He left the check on the table and walked out. I sat there staring at the paper, feeling the weight of the trade-off. Accepting it meant compromising my principles. Leaving it meant financial struggle. I tore it in half and walked away. Back at the apartment, Jeremy listened as I recounted the meeting. He was proud but worried. We need to think about next steps, Mark. Grad school loans are not going to cover everything. The practical realities pressed in. That week, I started applying for teaching assistant positions while fielding more family calls. My uncle left a voicemail, calling me a disgrace. The social isolation grew. Even some friends at school distanced themselves after hearing rumors my father had spread. One classmate whispered during a study group, I heard your family is against this whole gay thing. The prejudice was not abstract anymore. It had faces and voices. Yet small victories emerged. My thesis advisor recommended me for a prestigious fellowship, citing the courage in my work. The news lifted my spirits, but also intensified the family rift. My mother called crying again, begging me to reconcile. I told her I loved her, but I could not pretend to be someone else. The conversation ended in tears on both sides. Jeremy and I spent the evening on the rooftop of his building, watching the city lights. He said, I am here no matter what. In that moment under the clear night sky, I felt the first stirrings of awakening. The pain was teaching me resilience. But the cost was mounting. My father's interference had reached the fellowship committee through anonymous letters. I had to write a statement defending my character. The process was humiliating, but I did it. When the fellowship came through, despite the noise, I knew I had made the right choices. Still, the victory felt hollow without family to share it. Jeremy noticed and pulled me close. We will build our own family. His words gave me hope, but the internal conflict raged on. How much more could I sacrifice before the damage became permanent? The moral crossroads arrived during Thanksgiving break. My mother invited me home, insisting my father would behave. Jeremy encouraged me to go, saying it might bring closure. I flew to Pennsylvania alone, the decision weighing heavy. The house looked the same, but the atmosphere was tense. Dinner was silent until my father spoke. I saw your name in the university newsletter. Congratulations. The words were stiff, but they were something. I thanked him, and the conversation turned to safer topics. Later in the garage where he kept his tools, he confronted me again. That man, Jeremy. Is he worth losing us? I looked him in the eye. He is worth everything because he sees me. My father turned away, but I saw his shoulders slump. For the first time, I glimpsed his own fear of losing his son. Back in New York, the relationship with Jeremy hit a rough patch. The constant stress had worn us both down. He wanted to move in together to share expenses, but I hesitated, fearing it would look like I was running from my problems. We argued in the kitchen, one evening, voices rising. You keep pushing me away, Mark, he said. I am not your family, but I am your future. The words stung because they were true. I had been so focused on the fight with my father that I neglected the man who stood by me. That night we talked until dawn, laying everything bare, the fears, the dreams, the price we both paid. By morning we decided to take the next step. Jeremy moved some of his things over, and the apartment felt fuller, warmer. Yet external pressures continued. A local conservative group caught wind of my thesis topic and protested outside the university during a public lecture I was giving. Signs read, "Protect traditional families." I stood at the podium, heart pounding, and delivered my talk anyway. Jeremy was in the front row, his presence giving me strength. After the event, a reporter asked for a comment. I spoke honestly about love and acceptance. The interview went viral in academic circles, but also brought more hate mail. Through it all, I felt myself changing. The scared student was becoming a man who owned his narrative. The awakening was painful, but powerful. My brother Ethan reached out unexpectedly, apologizing for his role in the betrayal. We met for coffee and talked for hours. He admitted the family pressure had pushed him too. The conversation was not full reconciliation, but it was a start. As winter approached, I faced the biggest dilemma yet. My father had a minor heart scare, and my mother begged me to visit. Jeremy offered to come, but I knew it would make things worse. I went alone carrying gifts and the hope of healing. The hospital room was quiet. My father looked frail in the bed. When he saw me, he said, "I have been thinking, Mark. Maybe I was wrong about some things." The admission was small, but it cracked the wall between us. We talked for an hour about his own upbringing and fears. I left feeling lighter, but knowing the journey was far from over. Back home, Jeremy waited with dinner and open arms. In his embrace, I understood that every sacrifice had led me here to a place of greater strength and clearer love. The year had broken me and rebuilt me. Now I was ready for whatever came next. The climax unfolded at the annual Sociology Award ceremony in a grand hotel ballroom bathed in bright chandeliers. I had been nominated for Best Thesis, and against all odds I won. The announcer called my name, and the room erupted in applause. As I walked to the stage, I scanned the crowd and froze. My father and mother were there sitting near the back. My heart hammered. Jeremy, who had come as my date, squeezed my hand before I stepped up. The acceptance speech I had prepared suddenly felt inadequate. I looked directly at my father and spoke from the heart. This thesis is for every person who had to choose between family and truth. It is for the parents who struggle to understand and the children who refuse to hide. The room was silent, then applause thundered. When I stepped down, my father stood waiting. The confrontation happened in the hallway away from the crowd. His voice was low. "I watched the whole thing, Mark. Your words hit me hard. I do not understand everything, but I see how much this means to you." Tears welled in his eyes. "I was wrong to smash that laptop. Wrong to try to control you." The admission hung between us like a lifeline. I told him about the nights I cried, about the fear and the love that kept me going. Jeremy joined us quietly. My father looked at him for a long moment, then extended his hand. "I hear you make my son happy. That is something." The handshake was awkward but real. My mother hugged all of us, crying openly. The moment was not perfect, but it was progress. Later at the after-party under string lights on the rooftop, my father pulled me aside. "I lost sleep thinking about what I almost destroyed. Seeing you up there proud and strong, it changed me." He admitted the heart scare had forced him to reflect. The family pressure he grew up with had blinded him. I shared my own awakening, how the struggle taught me that love without acceptance is incomplete. We talked until the sky lightened. Jeremy watched from across the room, smiling. The evening ended with my father promising to attend my graduation in the spring. As we left the hotel, Jeremy and I walked hand in hand through the quiet streets. The city lights reflected in his eyes, and I felt the full weight of the journey lift. The betrayals, the sacrifices, the confrontations had all led to this fragile bridge between worlds. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "Dad called me last night. He is different." The family group chat, which had been silent for months, started filling with cautious messages. Healing was beginning, but I knew it would take time. Jeremy made breakfast, and we ate on the balcony under the morning sun. He said, "You did not just win an award, Mark. You won yourself back." In that moment, I realized the true outcome my father never saw coming was not my success alone, but the way it forced him to confront his own heart. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, it felt possible to walk it with everyone I loved. Graduation day arrived in a blaze of bright spring sunshine across the university quad. I stood in cap and gown with Jeremy, beside me my parents the few rows back. When my name was called and I crossed the stage, the applause included my father's loud whistle, the sound I had not heard since childhood baseball games. After the ceremony, we gathered for photos. My father shook Jeremy's hand again, this time with a small smile. "I am still learning, son, but I am trying." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of months of pain and growth. My mother beamed between us all. The family was not fully mended, but the foundation was there. In the weeks that followed, my father visited New York twice. We talked over long dinners about his past, my future, and the changing world. He even read parts of my thesis and asked honest questions. The prejudice from extended family lingered, but my parents stood firmer each time. Jeremy and I moved into a larger apartment together, symbolizing the new chapter. My teaching job started in the fall, and the fellowship funded my first research project. Life was not perfect, but it was mine. Looking back, the shattered laptop became the catalyst for everything. The destruction forced me to rebuild not just the document, but my entire sense of self. The confrontations revealed the depths of family love and its limits. The betrayals taught me who my real allies were. The sacrifices showed the true cost of silence versus truth. And the awakening reminded me that change is possible even in the hardest hearts. Jeremy and I grew stronger through every trial, our bond forged in fire. My father never became an activist, but he showed up, and that was enough for now. As I sit here on the balcony watching the city wake up, I wonder about the paths not taken. The story is not over, but the ending so far is one of hard-won hope. My father once believed he was protecting me by breaking what I built. In the end, what he broke open was the door to understanding. Was my father ultimately right to try to save me from what he saw as a destructive path, or was his prejudice the real force that nearly destroyed our family and my future?